the only thing anyone can talk about, whether it's the MAGA faithful or the press who is hateful, is the first 100 days of the second Trump term. There's only one person we can talk to about this. Of course, he is the anchor of Special Report on the Fox News channel, nightly at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 in the West. He also has a phenomenal podcast, the Bret Baier podcast, which you have to download and listen to right now. So let's get into trade, foreign investment, and Elon. Bret Baier, welcome back to Kennedy Saves the World. The 100-day mark actually, I think, happened at day 20 because so much happened so quickly. Was there a risk for this administration getting so much done so early? And did that leave too much room for people to frame the breakneck speed of the second term negatively?
I mean, that's a good framing of it. I mean, it was shock and awe off the top. And, they had been working on that rollout of executive orders, more than 100 of them in the first, couple of weeks for a long time. So there was a lot that was happening. I think what really has transpired is not so much the quickness, but the slowdown of getting a trade deal on the books, like finished. There's a lot that are pending that we think in coming days are going to get across the finish line. Maybe India, maybe South Korea, Japan. And those blueprints of how that looks and taking down tariffs and changing trade barriers and specific products, what that looks like in the individual countries is going to tell a lot to the markets, to companies, and I think may take some jitters away that are very present in this whole tariff back and forth. So I really think that part of the equation had hurt their 100-day rollout. Listen, a lot of this is going to be dependent on how that goes and then how the big, beautiful bill up on Capitol Hill goes. That's the growth agenda, the tax cuts, deregulation. And that part of it in the first term was simultaneous with tariffs. This is, the cart before the horse, and people are not seeing the vision as of yet.
Well, people are also still feeling a lot of economic pain, which is why the president was able to put together the coalition that he did to win re-election. And, for a lot of those Americans, the Biden agenda was not working for them. And they weren't just promised change, they were promised quick change. And, I argued yesterday in the Daily Mail, the president could accomplish trade deals if it's not 90 deals in 90 days, if it's 89 deals in 91 days. There's a big faction of the press that isn't going to give him credit for it. And, even if there is a permanent ceasefire in Ukraine, he still might not get a lot of ink for that either. But he's the one who tends to put the pressure on himself, saying, on day one, we'll have a ceasefire, the war will be over. On day one, I'll make a deal with China, I'll make a deal with everyone. And even if you take away that bluster, will he get credit for the accomplishments that will change the structure of not only the presidency, but how the United States competes and interfaces with these other superpowers?
I'm not sure he's ever going to get complete credit for anything that goes right under the Trump administration. I mean, it's still a press corps that has a specific point of view, and you're right. I mean, it might never deliver, but I do think if he gets some of these deals, and if something happens with China as far as a negotiation that changes the dynamic, and you're right to point out it's a shift of the paradigm of where we have been. I mean, we have, if you look historically, been on the back end of trade deals, and our cars are not sold in different countries. Our goods are not sold in different places, and sometimes they're taxed and tariffed significantly. So there are people who get the mission here. It's how it's operating and how it was rolled out that some people are saying are questioning. And I do think if there are some big changing deals, that's going to change the dynamic. And then other countries are going to say, oh, wait, this is how you dealt with that product. This is how you're interacting with this company. That's what we're going to do in our proposal. And from what I've been talking to, the officials inside the administration, there are a lot of countries ready to really deal. And this administration is kind of methodically going through and figuring out what they really want. What they really want is to pin China in and to get them to the table in a really weakened position, negotiating-wise. And China just historically feels a lot of pain, and they are able to sustain it, and we'll see. It's a giant game of chicken between the U.S. and China.
So how do you think that could resolve itself? Because you have South Korea, Japan, and India, and their combined GDP is only about a third of China's. China doesn't have the consumers that the United States has. The president knows that. The president has said that. So is the goal to put together a coalition of trade partners that replaces China, or is it to pin China into a corner, which is a place it doesn't want to be, and they have been very hesitant to what they see as this kind of tariff bullying? Is the point to force their hand back to the negotiating table for, the mother of all trade deals?
I think it's the latter. I think they're not opposed to replacing, but they know it's pretty impossible in the current environment with all that China touches, especially in stuff that we need, rare earth, magnets, little things that you don't even think about, that any button that you push on any device that you have somehow in the inner workings deals with something that China has touched. And so, I do think it's the latter, getting them to the table in a different position than they are. And I don't know if it's going to work, and we may have a little bit more pain to go through. And I don't think that was adequately explained at the beginning. The other thing is you have a lot of balls in the air. Like we said, there's not been one that has come to fruition, but also on the foreign policy front. There's negotiations with Iran on the Iran nuclear deal. There's negotiations with Russia and Ukraine. There's negotiations on the hostages still in Gaza and with Hamas. There hasn't been a landing on any of those. So, without the deliverable, you could see why poll numbers go the way they go. People
want kinetic results. And, any politician can promise you the potential, but it is the deliverables that people need, again, to get them out of pain. Because if it's not inflation, if it's not the price of eggs, it's the value of their 401k. And, older voters are the ones who are the most loyal. They're the ones who are the most consistent. And if they are the ones who are being hurt by diminishing returns in their investments with less and less time to put money into those, they're the ones who, I don't think that any coalition is safe in this political environment. But I want to talk a little bit about Elon Musk. What are you hearing about his departure from the White House? Was it friendly? Is he still involved from a distance? Did he leave to go save Tesla? Was this planned?
It was planned. He was what's called a special government employee, SGE, and there's only 130 days that they can work without, and then otherwise they'd have to be in a different position. But he was categorized as that, so it was always going to be in May sometime. So we saw him at the cabinet meeting, very amicable. They have a great relationship still, for all the writings that was falling apart or Trump felt threatened by him. I just don't think that's the case. He values his guidance. As far as what his role is going to be after this, I don't know. I don't know what that's going to be. I do know that he was concerned about Tesla and where it is, and he's plugging back in. But the efforts of Doge and that team are going to continue. I know in coming days they're going to do a couple more things like they did with me, which is everybody comes out and talks about what they're working on. Essentially, I think it'll be a little different. And what I'm told is like, they'll be around a table and talking like they're having their Doge meeting, which they do, and what they're finding. The question is, can they get to $1 trillion? They're at about 160 billion right now, from what I understand. So, you got a long way to go. And they're trying to get that to offset some of the stuff in the big, beautiful bill to get tax cuts and deregulation through.
No, I'm a huge fan of tax cuts, deregulation, and also cutting spending. And, if Doge is successful in cutting the fraud and the waste, then, again, if they're setting the table with trade deals and tariffs, I don't have a problem with resetting the table in terms of how this government taxes and spends money, because, right now, as we've seen with a lot of these NGOs, there's not a lot of accountability. So I personally hope that work continues.
I agree. And I know that's the libertarian in you. And you've got a real feeling that this place has gone out of control for so long that it's going to take a lot of effort. Congress could never do it. That's why, there was a lot of hope that this Doge team could kind of dig in. And what they've found is ridiculous. I mean, just some of the things that some agencies' computers don't talk to each other.
Yes.
And the fact that for years and years they don't talk to each other. And the fact that retirement is handled by paper. I mean, that's unbelievable if in today's world. So I do think they're going to make substantial changes, systemic changes. I don't know if it's going to add up to $1 trillion, but I think they're trying to get it done there.